Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Boxed Hot. We have in studio today a really rare opportunity to interview somebody who's lived large. He's lived an interesting life that, I would say is into his at least triple career. And this is, a full-time triple career. He made something of his life, at least in 3 areas that I know of, that are accomplishments that, anybody would dream of. So we have Ronald S. Barak, who I've come to know as Ron, and he's really been a celebrated athlete as a young adult, we're gonna learn about. And then he moved into law. He's really a celebrated trial lawyer, and now he's literally, and this is my real interest to have him here. He has the ability, which we all do, to take the future by the, it's like taking the bull by the horns and forcing the physical body to manifest what the mind deems it to do. And most people do it the other way around. They allow the body to tell the mind what to do. I'm gonna do that tomorrow. But he's created his future by focusing on a new career. And that new career is nothing other than the loneliest job in the world, novel writing. And so we have somebody who, is onto a career that's blossoming. He's been really rewarded by, I think, some really lavish results for a first time. And now are we second book or third book? Where are we at?
The second is launching, and the third one is approaching launch.
So what set it off was this one. This is just by its own title. How timely is this? The Amendment Killer. And this became, how fast did that become a bestseller?
It took about 4 or 5 months.
And what can you tell me inspired this first book? What put me in the place, that space where you turned yourself into a semi-retired lawyer and got the gumption to put yourself into a mode that, face it, trial lawyers, especially a guy who has to put on a performance, this type of thing isn't foreign. But to actually go this deep, how many pages is this?
500, a little
500 pages. That's a commitment that most people couldn't even dream of. So what inspired it?
Well, what inspired it was a dare from one friend in front of a bunch of others. And liking to think of myself as a pretty good lawyer, I pretended I didn't hear the dare and quickly changed the subject. This was at a lunch with a number of people. And I was heaping some criticism on a very successful author who I enjoy reading very much, but he had written an undisclosed trilogy. And I got to the end of the first novel and there was no closure. And I was being critical of that. And so my friend said, well, if you're such a smart so-and-so, why don't you get out of the back seat and show us what you can do?
Wow, well, that's a serious challenge. Take that.
Well, I pretended not to and managed to escape the lunch without any further reference to it.
You didn't make a deal?
No, but I came home and I told my wife, I think I have to try and write a novel. And that turned into The Amendment Killer.
Wow. Now, let me back up a little bit. That's incredible all by itself, just the spark, that was a catalyst enough to move you into a space that you thought you can do it. So it must have been something in you, probably your whole life, that you aspired to, but just never thought there was a reason, and this sparked it. Could you tell me just a little bit? I want to regress a little. I like always starting from a beginning point, and that was, where did you grow up? And tell me what your parents did and what school you attended and how you made it into college.
Well, I grew up. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I went to Hamilton High School. My father was a businessman and a real estate investor. My mom was a homemaker. I went from Hamilton High School to USC. I was a physics major, couldn't have been more removed from the idea of being an author or a writer. And when I finished undergraduate school, I couldn't think of wanting to go out and find a job, so I went to law school because that would buy me another few years. And I came out of law school and started writing.
Wow.
Started practicing law. The writing came much later.
Oh, right. You didn't start. You started writing for law.
Yes.
Your cases. So there was writing. There's a lot. Tell me, is there a lot of writing as a trial lawyer?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it is. So I mean, the mission of actually putting things to paper is something that you can't avoid as a trial lawyer.
Well, that's absolutely right. You write, but it's very different than the kind of writing you do as a novelist.
Right.
When you're writing as a lawyer, it's pretty dry, and it's pretty see Dick run. Dick runs fast.
Right.
And when you're trying a case to a jury, you have to tell them what you're going to tell them, and then you have to tell them, and then you have to tell them what you told them. You don't get to do anything like that when you're writing a novel.
Right. Could you, you did pass over something I think is pretty important, your athletic career. Could you tell us a little bit about that and where that led to, the biggest kind of, the biggest culmination of that, and people that you met along the way? Well,
I found my way to gymnastics quite by accident. I wasn't big enough to be a football player or a basketball player, but I love sports, and I stumbled across gymnastics quite by accident, actually in junior high school before high school, and I stuck with it, and by the time I was in high school, I was becoming fairly accomplished at it. I don't know if it was talent or just hard work, but I went on to college. I was recruited by most every college that had any kind of a gymnastics program. I continued to matriculate in college. I was the NCAA championship winner in several different events on several occasions. The team I was on won an NCAA championship. And around the time I was a senior, I tried out for and made an Olympic team. I had competed already then internationally, but that was what you refer to as the culmination. For me, that was the highlight. And I did that really as I was a senior at USC and came back from there, and that's when I went to law school.
You had an opportunity on one of those, I think it was a national event, to go abroad. What countries did you visit, and what kind of leaders did you meet?
Oh, I've been to many countries, but perhaps the most interesting was when I competed around the time I was 17 years old in the Maccabeah Games, which is essentially the Jewish Olympics, and it takes place every few years in Israel. And I won 8 gold medals in the Maccabeah Games that I was in, which resulted in my being invited by Golda Meir, the Prime Minister, to sit down with her one-on-one and have lunch in her office. Absolutely fantastic experience for a youngster, and she was a terrific person. It scared the daylights out of the officials of the Maccabeah team because they weren't sure I could handle it without embarrassing someone.
Right. Now, what did you get an offer at the end of that? Was there?
Well, she was the quintessential salesperson, and she wanted to recruit me to move to Israel, lock, stock, and barrel, and start running their gymnastics program. And I tried to explain that I was just a freshman in college, and my family was in the United States, and she just had an answer for everything. I could go to school and just come there, you know, in the summertime, things like that. They would move my whole family to Israel. But I think ultimately she found out she wasn't going to close the deal, that I wasn't ready to make that move.
Wow, there you go. That when I say that Ron has interesting stories, we've only tapped the surface. Now, tell me, what was the inspiration behind the premise of this, the first book, The Amendment Killer, and what? Give me in a nutshell what we're dealing with.
Well, I've already mentioned that I accepted a challenge to write a novel. So the next step was about what? Well, I like politics and I like law, and I like not having to do a lot of research. So good to stick to something you know about. And I'm fairly apolitical. I don't care for either side of the aisle. I'm not overly impressed with politicians. Some of them are really good people, but there are a lot of them who are not. And so I wanted to write about something that would address trying to clean out the swamp, or at least think about ways to do that. And in The Amendment Killer, a group endorsed and created a hypothetical 28th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. We actually have 27 amendments. And that amendment criminalized all kinds of political abuse and political corruption. Congress was obviously not happy with that, and they filed suit to try and invalidate that amendment, which found its way up to the U.S. Supreme Court to make the final decision in a hearing on an expedited basis because of the importance of the case. On the eve of trial, or hearing, it's not a trial in the Supreme Court, the justice who was believed to have the swing vote received a text that said, "We have your granddaughter. Here's what you need to do." His granddaughter was an 11-year-old diabetic youngster who was kidnapped to control his vote.
Wow.
Putting him in the position of having to answer the question, would he do what was best for the country if it meant his granddaughter's life?
Wow. That's a cliffhanger.
It is.
Wow. Do you have a problem killing off people in your novel?
Well, it depends who they are. I don't want any spoilers, but I would have had a hard time at home if I let the kidnapper kill this 11-year-old youngster. On the other hand, there are people who die in my novels, but not quite as appealing or compelling as the youngster who was kidnapped. In this novel, you know, there's a legal battle going on in the Supreme Court where only the grandfather justice knows what's going on with his granddaughter. But at the same time, there is an equally compelling battle going on between this 11-year-old youngster and her kidnappers.
So there you go. That's what set off the firestorm for the prequel, The Puppet Killer.
Yes, sir.
Or the Puppet Master.
The
Speaking of
Puppet
killing.
Master.
And what's Brooke Latello Thriller? What is that?
Well, in my story, like in most novels, you have a protagonist or
Right.
two.
Right.
My protagonist isn't the typical lawyer or private dick or something of that sort. My main protagonist is Brooks, Cyrus Brooks, who
Brooks,
is a trial court judge. And Latello is Frank Latello, who is in fact a homicide investigator, and he is Brooks's arms and legs out in the community where Brooks, as a judge, can't venture.
Right, like Master and Blaster. Could we roll real quick to the Puppet Master little clip where we've got the little promo? Anytime you're ready.
They might as well have struck me down dead. They say I'm crazy to do what I've done. Maybe I am crazy. We have to take our country back. We have to do it now. Want to know why I've done this? Why I'll do it again if I need to? Have you ever killed anyone?
Wow. So there you go. That is quite a promo. Could you tell me whose voice was that in that promo?
Well, the promo's voice is mine.
It's yours.
Yes.
Wow, that's pretty cool. You even got the voice.
For little clips, little
Right.
short stuff.
Right.
I thought about narrating the audiobook
Right.
of my novels. That's too much of a task for me.
That's a big job.
But a little trailer, that was sort of a fun experience to do. I like doing things I haven't done before.
Yeah. Tell me now, give me some of the insight to the Puppet Master. What's the driving theme, and how does it prequel the Amendment Killer?
Well, the driving theme is a vigilante serial killer who is assassinating corrupt politicians. My theme is there. Those corrupt politicians hanging out in the swamp in D.C.
What's gonna happen? I mean, just now that we're having this little discussion, here we got this book. It's, people are picking it up at airports. They're picking it up at the holidays. It's a big thing. It's kind of the blueprint to like maybe somebody becoming that person. Would you feel at all guilty if all of a sudden there was in the news, just national, international news, that there's some serial killer cleaning out the swamp?
Well, I'd feel better if the 28th Amendment in the Amendment Killer was adopted in the real world and did some good. I wouldn't take any great pride in thinking that somebody tried to copy the vigilante serial killer in the Puppet Master, but it's just fiction.
It's just fiction, of course. I mean, this could easily be a movie. I mean, have you been approached yet by Hollywood?
I've been approached. Nothing that has consummated itself in any way, but people talk about it, and I am told that it generally takes 3 novels in a series to have enough content to support one of these limited edition TV series. And so my third novel Payback is about half completed, and we'll launch in about a year. And I then will have those 3 novels, and obviously it would be very rewarding and satisfying to see myself or my products on TV or in film. It was exciting seeing the audiobook for The Amendment Killer, hearing someone actually give voice.
Well, that's half
to
a movie.
My voice.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's where audio, you start to understand how important the sound is, right? That's 50%.
Absolutely.
You could, this brings it all to life, like radio, especially for, you know, people like me and you have a real appreciation for audio. Just a little insight for somebody inspired to write a novel. What kind of advice do you give for anybody aspiring to write?
Do it. I mean, that, you know, sounds like a Nike commercial, but basically do it. I speak a lot to various groups, and I get the question, how did you start writing, and how could you do something like that? And I usually try and turn it around and say, why don't you? Don't you think you have a story inside you? That's the starting point. You know, I was a physics major in college. I never had a creative writing class. So when I quietly accepted that first challenge, I didn't know the difference between pace and point of view and voice and things of that sort. I just started writing. But you pick it up.
Right, you
learn.
pick it up. Well, you hit on something because you keep hitting back to physics. And physics is something, you know, I have a genuine interest in. I'm interested in quantum mechanics. I'm interested in the manifestation of just orientating your thinking and changing the results by focus. And there's a whole new study of physics that has to deal with, I want this, I see it, I'm going to put my attention on this, and that the physical form will manifest from the imaginary form. And before you know it, you're sitting at a place like this talking about something that you only imagined. And here we are. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to get, we don't have the fresh copy to the Puppet Master, but you'll have these for sale too, I imagine.
Yeah.
At the book signing. There's a big launch that's going on for the Puppet Master. It's going to be Sunday, October 14th, 3 to 4. Our very own Ronald S. Barak will be there on hand to talk, to give a little insight. And anything you want to add to that? Just
to say that it's being hosted by Diesel Books in the Brentwood Country Mart. Right at San Vicente and 26th in the dividing line between Santa Monica and Brentwood, California.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Ronald S. Barak, the Puppet Master.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming into Studio A.
Thank you for having me.
All righty, gentlemen. Till next time, we will see you, and remember, it's the imagination that forms your future. Take care.